Well, good afternoon or good morning out there in Facebook Live. We're so thrilled that you could join us for this installment here of the Facebook series. And here from the Nasdaq market site in Times Square, New York, we have two terrific companies and executives with us this morning. So this morning joining us, Ian Ball, President and CEO of Abitibi Royalties.
Thank you, Rob.
And Rob McEwen, Chairman and Chief Owner of McEwen Mining.
Thank you, Rob.
So thank you very much for joining us this morning. So gentlemen, I guess I'll start right there. You're representing two terrific companies. What can you tell us about your respective companies?
Well, Abitibi is a royalty company within the gold space.
Right.
Our major royalty is on the largest gold mine in Canada, and it's set to enter its next phase of expansion. So we're quite excited about that.
And when you talk about a royalty structure for our viewers out
Right.
there, can you spend a little time on that?
So for every ounce of gold that's produced from the mine, we get a certain percentage of the revenue. In our case, it's 3%. So you collect the revenue, but you don't have to put up any of the capital for mining or expansion or drilling. So it's a different way to invest within the mining sector.
Thank you very much for that. And Rob, what can you tell us about McEwen Mining?
We're not a royalty company.
So you're
We're an
operating,
operating
right?
company. We have 4 mines, one in Canada, one in Nevada, one in Mexico, and another in Argentina. We spend a lot of money on exploration. We produce gold and silver, and we also have exposure to copper, a very large copper deposit.
So some diversity.
So we offer exposure to the precious metal space as well as to copper.
And as you're both right here in Times Square, what brings you to New York today?
Well, we're meeting with investors, telling the story about our respective companies and also why gold should have a place in everyone's portfolio.
Right.
Gold's been performing quite well in 2019, and going back to 2000 has been a good performer. So if you can invest in a well-run mining company, that can give you additional leverage within the gold space.
So with that in mind too, so for our viewers out there, and I was even surprised to see how well gold is done. And there's a lot going on out there. But what can you tell us about gold as an asset or an investment class?
It's a great diversifier for a portfolio.
Sure.
And we've had 10, 12 years of very strong equity markets. In the last 5 or 6, no one's paid any attention to gold.
Exactly. Right?
But if you look at the performance, the Dow's up about 50% since the beginning of 16. The S&P's up a little less. The metal, gold, is only up 43%. But if you looked at the ETFs for the senior and intermediate gold stocks, they're up over 100%. So those gold stocks have performed better, 100% better than the Dow and the S&P. And I think that's lost on a lot of investors, that there's something happening out there. It started in 16, and there's good momentum in the market right now.
Well, with that in mind, Ian and Rob, so if you're talking about gold as a diversifier in a portfolio and it's had such astounding returns, what would you say to the viewers, or what excites you most right now about the space you're in, or even your companies in particular?
Well, I think if you look at gold price, it's been running a lot harder in non-US dollars. So the Canadian dollar, the Australian dollar, it's almost hitting all-time highs. It's really only in the United States that gold's not at an all-time high price. But now you're starting to see gold move in US dollars for the first time now in the last 2 years. But if you go around the world, you're seeing a lot of instability with all currencies. So if you're in Canada, Australia, certain parts of Latin America, you have done exceptionally well holding the gold price, but now it's coming home to the United States, and that's when it gets the attention of the world. It's when it starts to move in US dollars.
Sure. So, and how about any projects, Rob, that are going on with your company, or discoveries or anything that gets you particularly excited right now?
We have a very active exploration program, and exploration is the R of the R&D of the mining industry.
Sure.
And so with that, you can create a lot of value. The company I built before was Gold Corp, and it was large. We went from 50 million to 8 billion before I decided I'm going to see if I can do it again.
Wow.
But it was an exploration story that led us to grow. And what you're seeing in the market right now is the possibility of making money. And there's some exploration stories that are, you've got 2 to 5x in the last year on some of these exploration stories. And that's going to draw interest from investors. The mining companies are all up 75, 100% in the last 3 years. So I think you're going to see a shift, a rotation, and when you look at the stock market, late market cycles,
Right.
part of the cycle, you have a rotation into metals, and into goods, so raw materials, and we're at, I would call, a late market stage
Sure.
in the market.
So worth a look.
Worth a look.
Now, Ian, you said something very interesting along the lines of discovery, the exploration.
Right.
That there's a lot taking place at current mines
Yeah,
or operations?
you actually are seeing a lot of exploration success, but it's happening at mine sites. And so in Abitibi's case, there's a new discovery at the Canadian Malartic mine below the existing pit that appears to be quite large. In the case of McEwen Mining, they have Barrick Gold operating to the north, and they have another multi-million ounce discovery. What's interesting is that it's all happening around existing infrastructure, which is what you want, so you don't have to replicate the process. And so that should be good for the junior mining companies that are operating within the same districts, because it gives new life.
And to answer the question about where we are in the cycle, so thank you. So, we also talked about this before we started this interview. For our viewers out there, a lot of folks working in incubators, dorm rooms, libraries, that proverbial kitchen table where businesses start, and they're thinking about getting something going or starting something new. So what would your advice be, especially in your space?
Well, I'd
Rob?
say take a look at mining. It's an old industry, and you probably haven't thought about it at all, but
Right.
it's in desperate need of technology, and that can transform the profit margins. So whether you're dealing with environmental issues and protecting it, or looking at logistics, or machine learning, autonomous vehicles,
Right.
they're all being introduced to the industry, albeit at a slower rate than's happening in other industries, but that's where you can have your competitive advantage.
So it's a
That's-
sector that's in need of
It's in
that
need.
innovation or that part of it. And Ian, since you were here last year as well, we know a same question
Right.
for this year. What are your thoughts? What advice would you give our viewers out there?
What I would give, I guess, advice to perhaps people who are looking at mining or people who are looking to start their own business, I think a lot of it is perseverance. It's not a straight line up. There's going to be some setbacks. A lot of people are going to be there's a large group of naysayers
Right.
out there.
Sure.
But I think if you have a focus and you have the drive and you're willing to put in the work, it's no guarantee for success, but it moves the odds into your favor. So I think
Sure.
a large degree of perseverance is often required in mining, but you don't see those stories usually in the headlines. It's a lot of it goes on behind the scenes.
Sure. And especially with the naysayers, which is great advice for the viewers out there, could be a signal too that it's worth a look.
Right.
So, well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. I know you have a very busy afternoon here at Nasdaq, so really appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk with us.
Thank you, Rob.
So, and to viewers out there, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.